Hello, everyone. I'm so pleased to welcome Gabriel to our inaugural season of Clean's podcast. Um, Gabriel joins us from Ora Health, and I'm very pleased to be inviting him to this podcast. Gabriel, would love for our audience to hear a little bit about yourself and about Ora Health as well.
John, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for welcoming me to Clean's podcast. Hello, everyone. My name is Gabriel Pereira. I'm the founder and CEO of Ora Health, one of Australia's fastest growing plant-based, vegan and environmentally friendly supplement brands. There's a lot of supplement brands out there, and I guess what makes us different is what I've figured out, which we'll talk about in this conversation, is my nearly 20 years of experience in the natural products industry, working with some of the biggest brands in the industry, and I guess some of the lessons I learned, which have been fed into the Aura business, but also just the quality of our products. We've gone as far, like you, we're bootstrapped, we're a startup, but we've invested in things like pilot clinical trials, and we use clinically proven ingredients. I think the Australian consumer in particular around the supplement category has become a lot more intelligent and discerning around their choices. And so we're catering to that person who's, been on a bit of a journey and has decided, okay, I'm ready now to upgrade the type of supplements I take. But I think a bit like your audience as well, very conscious of the decisions they make and the impact on the environment. So, we certainly subscribe to the whole philosophy of buy less but buy better, and that the fact that our dollars are actually a vote for the type of world that we're trying to create, right? So whether it's the ingredients that we buy for our products, or indeed the products that people buy, whether it's from our brand or from someone else.
Fantastic. Absolutely. Absolutely love it. So just for your reminder, the audience, the podcast is structured into three sections. We got the entrepreneurship section where we'll, dig into a little bit of Gabriel's background that he briefly touched on. We will talk about, Ora Health's journey, how did he conceive it, and how did he come about it. Let's talk about a little bit about the e-commerce business at the moment as well. We all know we are doing it tough at the moment. The business in general is challenging environment. And then we'll briefly touch on ESG and sustainability as well, and how that's shaping consumer preferences. So that's the section. Let's start with with your story, Gabriel. So I looked at your profile. Obviously been living in a few different countries. You're from New Zealand, but you've lived in Singapore, Shanghai. How has that shaped you as an entrepreneur? Well, do you delve deep into your experiences growing up, and that shapes all the decisions that you make?
It's a great question, and I think the short answer is yeah. So I grew up on a farm in New Zealand, and like most of us as kids, you don't realize how lucky you are until you're looking in the rearview mirror, right? So all I can remember is there's too much nature. I'm so bored because I have so much free time.
Yeah. Yep.
And now those two things are the things I want most in my life, right? So all I want
Yep.
to do is go for a bike ride or a run in the nature, and I want more free time for my friends, family, and myself. But at that time, you don't realize it, and all I wanted to do was basically get through uni and get to Asia as quickly as I possibly could with my career. So I actually studied law in uni and did an MBA, and then worked both as a barrister and solicitor, and then worked in private healthcare. And kind of after 6 years of study and then immediately starting my master's thesis and working, you get to the point where you're like, God, is this all there is?
Yep.
And so my process of arriving to the natural medicine industry was I spent actually nearly 9 months traveling around India with a backpack, which is where
Wow.
I encountered Ayurveda for the first time. And so I really fell in love with Ayurveda as a modality. My dad's a doctor, my mum was a nurse, so sort of a healthcare family, but fell
Yep.
in love with Ayurveda as a modality and just thought, okay, there's got to be a way of bringing together. So number one, I decided that I wanted to study it. So I moved to Sydney on the back of traveling through India and started in addition to working at Accenture that time, completed a diploma in Ayurvedic medicine, and did some clinic work in India and Sri Lanka as well. But then thought, okay, I've got to figure out, I want to kind of leave the corporate world. I thought I did.
Yep.
I've got to figure out how to bring together this incredible passion I have for Ayurveda, yoga, meditation, and my business skills at that time.
Yep.
And so my first entry to the natural medicine industry was actually on the raw materials side. So I worked with
Okay.
a leading distributor here in Australia who brings in herbal raw materials and other ingredients that are used in premium natural products from all over the world. And so that was a really amazing grassroots kind of start with the building blocks of the product's introduction. Then I moved into running a brand. So I was asked by one of that company's customers to come and run a brand in my early 20s, and naively I thought, oh yeah, how hard can it be? Turns out that brand was losing $1 million plus a year, was effectively a turnaround.
Wow.
Had a sales team, had products already, had some great traction in terms of product market fit. And so I was really fortunate enough to kind of step into that role, which was really a trial by fire. We managed to, build a small team, and then we managed to turn that business around, triple the revenues, get it to profitability, and eventually the owners of that business exited to our major competitor, which was pretty sad, but a good outcome for them. Then I moved into, I got headhunted by private equity again in Australia, ran another brand, and then did some natural product drug development, discovery and clinical trials with some friends of mine. And we sold that technology to Blackmores, which is, as you know, one of the biggest brands in the market. And so then Blackmores, I guess, liked what they saw and offered me a job. So I had just had, I think, our first child at that point and taken on a big mortgage. And I thought, gosh, okay, there is some interest then for me in stepping into the stability of a regular income, becoming an employee, and so on, particularly with the burden of the mortgage and, being a sole breadwinner and stuff, which I know you're probably familiar with.
Absolutely.
And I thought, okay, I need a job. I need a real job. So I stepped into a corporate job, basically with Blackmores, and I was there for 11 years. And I worked my way up from, the practitioner side of the business, R&D, into, leveraging, I guess, the skills that I built up during my management consulting years, and becoming director of business development, reporting to the CEO and the board of directors. It's a public company, so that's quite a big job. So I was in charge of M&A, product development for Asia, new ventures like joint ventures in Indonesia and so on, and did almost half of that time in Australia. Did some of their biggest deals to date. Acquired a couple of businesses for them, integrated those businesses, ran new ventures, and then was asked to move to Singapore to set up the international headquarters out of Singapore. Spent 4.5 years in Singapore, which was amazing. We can talk about that. And then decided that I needed to go back to the entrepreneurial stage.
Dog never leaves you, right?
I think if you have that hunger and you want to try and, I think it's proving it to yourself as much as to anyone else, to be very honest with you. And particularly because, and I don't know if this is the same for you, but for me, it's actually it's not only about wealth creation.
No.
So that's a big part of it, of course. We have families, we want to have a lifestyle, all of that kind of stuff, and we live in expensive parts of Australia. So that is a reality, but it's actually more about, can I actually get this done? Is this possible for me? So so I left Blackmores. I then I raised private equity money to go and buy a brand, which I thought was the way to do it. So actually buy someone else's business and do another turnaround type thing. Did that for a bit, and then was again headhunted to move to Shanghai. So got basically a very low income tax opportunity to join a business in Shanghai, out of Hong Kong actually, and then did 2 years in China, which was fascinating, really fascinating. And then my wife and I decided, or my partner at the time, I decided, gosh, the pollution is getting to us. I was traveling sometimes 3 weeks out of 4.
Wow.
She was sick every month between the air pollution and the lifestyle and the hours that we were working and stuff. And we just thought, hey, we don't have any jobs to go to. But we've saved up a bit of money. Let's go back to Australia and just see what we can do. So fortuitously, just before COVID, we had no idea it was coming down the track. We made the decision to return to Australia. Set up a standing desk in my attic, and then thought, okay, I'm going to do a bit of consulting work and stuff just to so I don't blow through all of our savings, which I did. And I thought, what if I just what if I just, took a blank sheet of paper literally and designed the best possible brand, product, and formulations that I had always wanted to do
Yep.
at Blackmore's and other businesses throughout my career, but was always constrained by, quite rightly so, I think, by its organic ingredients are too hard to source, which they were,
Yep.
5-10 years ago.
Yeah.
You can't make everything plant-based. You're going to struggle to have, an omega-3 product. Again, 5 years ago, that was probably correct. The market's not ready for a premium brand.
Yep.
Just do another cut price, crappy brand. um, all of the stuff that, we were
Yep.
told, I guess I was told through my career. And I just thought, screw it, look, why can't I do a brand that, is regenerative ingredients, full supply chain transparency, organic ingredients across the formulation, fully plant-based, better for the environment. So we were 1% for the planet's partner from day one of the brand.
Brilliant.
We've basically opened the kilt, if you like, on our entire supply chain. So if you're interested, and it's only sort of 3 to 4% of our shoppers who are interested. If you're interested, you can actually see the raw materials and the manufacturing documentation for every single one of our products. So,
Fantastic.
which is unprecedented in Australia.
Yep.
No one does it.
Yep.
And
No,
the
it's
reason for
very
that
hard,
is, look,
and I want to laud
yeah,
you for that commitment.
yeah, thank you. I mean, the way that I think about it, though, to use the analogy, is if you and I go to so it's date night, it's anniversary night, and we decide, okay, we're going to go to the best restaurant in town.
Yep.
What is that restaurant? What differentiates that restaurant is, of course, the surroundings, the atmosphere, the skill of the chefs, the pots and pans in the kitchen. But actually, it comes down to the provenance of the ingredients. Where do they come from? Who
100%.
who farms the meat? How is it farmed? Who farms the produce, et cetera, et cetera. So, what are the practices of the inputs that go into the food? And the very best restaurants in Australia and around the world pride themselves on the relationships they have with their suppliers, right? And we are absolutely no different. We are no different. So, unlike most brands, or the vast majority of brands in my industry, who basically just go to a contract manufacturer and say, hey, I want a product for sleep, put whatever you like in the formula, sort of thing. We actually select every single one of our ingredients. We determine the dose. We do our own regulatory work. We do our own formulation. Only then, once we've got an appreciation for the actual design of the product, do we go to a contract manufacturer in Australia who's got TGA licensing, ACO certification with the Australian Organic, and we say, okay, cool, now give me a quote. And we're fortunate to be able to do that because of the experience, I guess, over the last sort of 15, 20 years in some of these big brands.
Yep. No, I love this story. You've obviously taken all the experiences that you've had in the last 20 years, and it's a product of that.
That's right.
And not only that, you're doing the best that you've learned. You know where you can take shortcuts and where you could have taken shortcuts to make more margins, but you've not done that. You've done the best in class. I absolutely love that. That's a really inspiring, amazing story there.
We've had a lot of lessons. We've learned a lot of lessons, I guess, in that process, though. So,
Yeah.
I guess one of the lessons was, and this is interesting for your audience, I tried to not be publicly associated with the brand, not because I wasn't proud of it. Of course, I was. It was more, I didn't want the brand to be a personality-driven
Sure.
brand.
Sure. Yep.
And so I was trying to, have it have its own life independent of me, which it kind of does. But one of the things we've become aware of, or I've become aware of, is that my association is actually what gives the brand its credibility, perhaps.
Yep.
So that was interesting. And the other thing is just, I totally underestimated the degree of difficulty, even if you've got great products,
Yep.
of getting to market and having people jump on the product range. So I just thought,
Yep.
it's a great product. It's going to be amazing. Everyone's going to be keen. Why wouldn't you be? As to
Yep.
your point, I've done the best I possibly can with these formulations.
Yep.
Come on, market. Where are you, sort of thing. So that was a rude shock. That was really
Yep.
a rude shock.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're obviously scaling in an environment right now which is very difficult. There's
Yep.
not that much discretionary spending that's happening. And sometimes, people can construe with vitamins and health as a nice to have than a must have. So how do you deal with that? How do
It's a
you,
great point.
how do you grow in that kind of environment?
Yeah. So what was obvious to us during the Blackmore sort of years was that health and wellness actually becomes a purchase that people. You're absolutely right. Discretionary income, people's confidence in spending is lower right now. Absolutely. But we've seen this before, right? So what happens is there's two things that happen. One is health and wellness. People go, I can't afford to be sick because I can't afford to be away from work because I don't want to lose my job. This is the ordinary person in the workplace. Number two, we've had downsizing at work. I now have so much more on my plate. How on earth am I going to handle it all?
Yep.
So they need stuff to support them with stress, anxiety, energy, mood, whatever it is.
Yep.
And two things happen. There's a bifurcation between a flight to quality. So people go, as we said earlier, I'm going to buy less but buy better. So they'll invest in. They were buying the $15 product, from the discount pharmacy. Now they go, okay, I want to make sure I'm getting this something that works. Yep. Let me buy a better product. Or they go, I was buying the $49 product. Times are tight. The husband's lost his job or whatever it is. I'm going to buy the cheapest product I possibly can. But generally, spend in health and wellness stays the same or goes up slightly during economic constraints. But people do one of two things. They either buy better or they go as cheap as possible. So it's interesting. It's a little bit like those little luxuries like the daily coffee or something. Even in tough times, people will still treat themselves to that kind of thing just to keep their sanity.
Yeah, 100%. I was speaking to on another interview a couple of weeks back that they feel that in this market, just like you said, there's a bifurcation. Either you're going really well or you're going really cheap. They said there's winners and there's losers in this market. What have you seen in this market? And again, feel free to delve deep into the 20-year experience that you have playing in this market of what determines a winner and a loser in this kind of tight retail environment.
Yeah. So I'll speak to our experience with Ora and add to it with a bit more context. So we have been very fortunate, I guess, by design to build a multi-channel business.
Yep.
So simplistically, 20 to 23% of our business is direct to consumer via our own Shopify website, which is growing, and we're investing behind that, which we can talk about in, I guess, the e-commerce section of this conversation. Yep. 80% of the business is what we call retail partner business. So, and that is split between what we call key accounts. So trade customers that we have a direct relationship with and serve directly, and then distributor business. So we've carefully selected basically one key distributor in Australia who has their own field force, is calling on health food stores and pharmacies and natural health practitioners and so on, represents, in their case, 3,000 other brands. So we don't get a lot of focus, but provides that convenience of a one-stop shop for you to kind of order your dark chocolate, your essential oils, your Ora products, your whoever brand, right? So that distributor business is very important to us because it gives us coverage that we wouldn't otherwise have. We have a kind of a state-based key account business in every state in Australia where we have relationships with key groups or banners or individual stores, and we've invested a lot of time and money and energy in building relationships and getting the product ranged in those stores. So we're very fortunate. I guess it's not easy to maintain those kind of multi-channels, but we're very fortunate that we have the diversification of spread across those channels, because we can fall victim to or anyone can fall victim to, let's say there's a downturn in retail spending. That impacts our retail partners, and in turn they order less product from us, right? So that's point number one. Point number two, I think in tough times, particularly in a saturated media environment, you have to upweight content, you have to upweight visibility of the brand, you have to upweight demand-based advertising, whether it's Meta or other platforms, that kind of drives awareness and purchase intent. And so we've recalibrated all of our investment, the vast majority of investment for time, direct response advertising and content and trade kind of education and so on. So that's how we've approached it.
That's great advice.
There's still a market out there, 100%. And maybe for the next 6 to 12 months, it's just we try and grab share from other brands. Maybe it's not new consumers coming to the space. Maybe we're just chipping away at someone else's market share, and that's totally fine.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that determines a win as well.
Mm,
Um, that's interesting. You mentioned one of the challenges is e-commerce. That gets us nicely into the kind of e-commerce
mm.
segue. How have you found e-commerce different from your other channels in terms of acquisition? Has it been more difficult? Has it been more complex than previous years? How do you see it?
Yeah, so it's been another big learning curve for us. So initially, I think like many brands, because I've heard the story a few times from different brands in different industries, we thought it's because I've grown up in, you know, B2B, you can call it simplistically, right? Not D2C. And so we kind of thought philosophically, let's just get an agency, some young guys with baseball caps on backwards, literally, to come and run our Facebook and Meta and help us drive the business. Tens and tens of thousands of dollars later with zero results. Um, we went through two agencies, I think maybe even three,
Yeah,
who, there was always another excuse. There was like, you guys don't have enough images, probably true. You don't have enough content, probably true. We can't get results, but yet they're still charging you the monthly retainer and all the rest of it. So we were really challenged by this because we thought, you know, we have a proposition that should be working online, but yet we're just investing and investing with no return. So we made the decision, I think about 2 months ago, that we're going to do it ourselves.
okay,
And so again, that means that myself and other people in the team actually have to stop doing some things in favor of
sure.
learning the business.
Yep,
um,
yep,
Creating more content, driving more ad spend, redirecting our spend internally towards D2C as well. So that's what we've done, and
wow,
I'm touching wood as I say this, very, very good. And I think just conversations with other brands, both in the natural beauty space, non-competing and competing brands, actually, they've all said to me, look, in some cases they've said, look, we just see our retail kind of B2B business as a bonus because we've
wow,
invested so much in our D2C business, and
yep,
it's become such an important high growth, higher margin part of our business that we have control of. So
yep,
one of the things, obviously, or stating the very obvious, is unless you're in front of these retail partners, unless you're actively partnering your distributors the B2B side of the world, you're not getting growth. In fact, you're going backwards. So
yep,
just to maintain your business in those stores, you need to be, in contact, providing samples, doing displays, doing gondola ends, all of that kind of stuff, because the market it doesn't operate in a vacuum, right? So you've got hungry competitors in those stores with more resources, more
yep,
reps,
yep,
better deals, higher discounts than you every day of the week.
yep,
Um, so while you're looking over here,
yep.
they're taking your business over there, sort
Absolutely.
of thing. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I love
but
that you've
yes,
just, rolled up your sleeves and gone into the
we
e-commerce
didn't have a
business
choice. I
yourself.
mean, it was
Yeah.
going to just be more spend on more agencies
Yep.
for still very mediocre results.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. Whilst
so
you
yeah,
are
we
your best place to understand your business, you understand what motivates your
yeah
customer, um, and
yeah.
how can
It's
you
not easy
drive it.
though. But I mean, look, I think that would be probably, if I could leave your audience with some advice. I think if committed to growing an online business, they need
Yep.
to take ownership of it.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
so yeah, we've done that, and I think that's going to pay dividends in F25 next financial year.
Yeah. 100%. That sounds awesome. Um, Talking about growth in e-commerce, um, looking back at you, kind of 20 years of experience.
Hmm.
What are some of the growth hacks that you've seen that has really worked? That, one or two that you can leave our audience with.
Sure. I mean, so a lot of it is positioning yourself for luck, right? So
Yep.
you've heard people like Jim Collins talk about this, I'm sure, and others. So I'll give you an example from the Blackmores days. So there was a massive cross-border e-commerce boom in China for natural products and natural beauty, as you know, or as many
Yep.
of your listeners will know. Um, Blackmores had a presence in China. We were losing a lot of money just investing to build that business in China. It was all cross-border e-commerce. It wasn't owned stores at that stage. It was all Tmall, JD.com, Little Red Book, and so on. Fan Bingbing, who is a big Chinese movie star, like beautiful Chinese actress, was spotted on WeChat with a bottle of Blackmore's vitamin E cream falling out of her handbag,
Oh, wow.
right?
Okay.
this was like something that sold, I think from memory, about 1,000 units a month, which is a nothing product for Blackmores, right? 1,000 units a month globally, right?
Yep.
And suddenly, with this observation on WeChat, which just blew up, Fanbin being secret beauty hack or whatever, it went to 110,000 units a month, 150,000 units a month, like overnight. We couldn't make enough of this thing.
Yeah. That's incredible. And
Right?
that was by design. That was not an accident.
No, it was total. That's what I say. Luck met kind of preparation, if
Yeah.
you like, in that sense, because we had distribution. Obviously Blackmores had the resources to go out and scale up production and all of that kind of stuff. So I
Incredible.
think you have to be ready for that sort of really fortuitous, lucky break,
Yep.
which was amazing, and that really was emblematic of, I guess, Blackmore's success in China, because as Marcus Blackmore used to say, the wallpaper in Australian pharmacies is Blackmore's, right?
Yep.
And has been for so many years. It's such a trusted brand, rightly so, with really high quality products that generations of Australians, and of course now generations of Chinese visitors as well as Chinese Australians, have used. So
Yep.
it was incredibly well positioned for that success, I guess, that happened during that period. I think other growth things to think about. It's very boring and it's not my natural inclination, but you must have a handle on your finances.
Yep.
You must have a handle on your finances. So, if you get a spike in growth, for example, again, by luck or by design, but you don't have the working capital to scale up your inventory, you miss the opportunity, right? So
Right.
you need to understand, obviously, particularly in the startup world, not a single plan you will develop will be exactly executed
Yeah.
according to that plan.
Change every day.
not a single one. But again, I appreciate the time constraints as a founder with a family and all of that kind of stuff, but you have to try and carve out the time to actually, even if it's a one-page plan, have a plan on a page that you kind of commit to and ensure your team commits to. Look back on it regularly, break it down into quarterly objectives, into monthly objectives, weekly objectives, and so on. If you don't do that, you will get caught up in the 4 million emails that you haven't yet answered, returning the 20,000 calls that you haven't yet returned, everything that looks and feels important, but is actually not even remotely moving your business forward. So
Yep.
what we as a business always try and come back to doing is, and it sounds really mercenary, but it's really important, particularly when you're trying to get to, cash flow positivity, EBITDA positivity as quickly as you can, and not draw on your own funds. Is this driving profitable revenue growth? So that we ask ourselves that question all the time. So we get opportunities, hey, come and sponsor this thing, or, advertise with this event, or all of them look like pretty cool, and in the big budget days of working in corporate with an actual marketing budget, you might go, yeah, okay, it's cool. It's only $5,000 or whatever. Let's give it a go. We're super, super discerning with how we spend money. And again, I think speaking to mistakes made, I made the mistake of, I was running 3 businesses at once during the early stage, because we started a couple of brands, plus we had a consulting business. I thought that was necessary just to kind of keep the mortgages paid and all that kind of stuff. But I took my eye off the ball in terms of the main game, which was Ora. And so I built a national sales team of about $1 million in Salesforce cost, right? And basically left them to it, because I had a senior person who was kind of ostensibly running that sales team. And I thought, okay, delegate the authority down, let that person go away and drive the sales. Every month was a miss on, mutually agreed targets. This went on for sort of 12 to 15 months. And I was like, this is just not working.
No.
And so when we bought out our investor in the business about a year ago, I just thought, all that cost's got to go. All of it's got to go. So we made that very hard decision to say, okay, look, there's no more Salesforce. We're going to do the sales ourselves for trade and D2C.
Yep.
All of the money that was being spent on that Salesforce dropped to the bottom line. We've had 100%, 110% growth in D2C, about 150% growth in D2C business since that time. We've had 60% growth in our trade business.
Wow.
So that's not because we're rock stars. It's just, that focus has come in. Yeah, we're back into your point, I think earlier, we're back in touch, very, very connected as much as we can be to our customers, to our distributors, and obviously to our consumers online.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's
there's
great.
I think also a growth hack that I would tell myself
Yep.
and others is stop looking for shortcuts.
Yep. Yep.
Right? I mean, try and obviously be efficient, be productive, be time efficient. But I think we've all fallen victim to this kind of entrepreneur stuff. It's just about the next, email application that's going to change everything.
Yep.
Just stop looking for shortcuts. The
Yep.
fundamentals of business are exactly the same as they have been for the last 100 years. Great customer service, amazing products. Do what you say you're going to do when you make a promise to someone. Keep your brand front of mind for your shoppers. Those are all old ideas. So yeah, but I mean, I'm guilty of the shiny object thing. I'm always like, I'm so busy. If only I had a new email app, that would fix everything.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, that's sage advice. It never goes too far away from the basics, right? And if you do the basics right, the luck will follow as well.
Yeah.
And that virality or that growth will follow. But you got to get the basics right, and you got to execute that properly.
Yeah, it's hard though. I think, and you probably got the same challenge. Ego is a tough one. We're all sort of, I guess, proud people or whatever, and that risk of failure is there.
Yep.
And my God, what does that do for my reputation? And what will the family think? And that is honestly, that's in the back of my mind, and I'm sure it is for you as well. Like,
yes.
But you have to sort of face that front on and do that sort of worst case scenario thinking, at least for a little period of time, where you say, okay, what's the worst that happens? I lose the money and I go and get a job, or one person at a family barbecue asks me how the business is going, and I have an embarrassing 5 minutes. That's literally the worst that can happen.
Yeah, and it's not embarrassing. You gotta take it on the chin, right? Like, I learned something which is gonna help me in my next job.
That's right.
Or it's going to improve me as a human, and there's no price on that.
That's right.
There's no value in that. So great advice there. One more thing I wanted to quickly touch on, just on e-commerce, is how do you think about customer acquisition, right? So customer acquisition costs have gone up really high because of Meta and Google driving up price per lead and cost per clicks and things like that. Versus customers who you already got in your CRM. How do you think about loyalty versus acquiring new customers through paying for them? Can you just talk us through your brain process there?
Of course. The customer you already have is generally worth 4 times the customer that you need to go out and find, right?
100%.
Just, they know the brand.
Yeah.
They just, to your point, they just need a bit of love. They just need a bit of attention to kind of repurchase. They've bought into the brand story. Yep. In our case, they've normally already had a good experience therapeutically with the product. So I think it's critically important, as you say, to invest in things like CRM and understanding who your customers are and purchase patterns and so on and so forth. We do something kind of weird, maybe quirky. Once a month, actually, I'm going to try and do it today, and maybe Monday as well. I actually send out personal video messages to my D2C customers.
Wow.
So, you might have bought $100 worth of product, but I want to talk to you personally and say, hey, thanks so much. Here's a special offer. I noticed you've bought the magnesium product. This is how I use it. This is what some other people have said about it. Just stuff that people, certainly founders of businesses just won't normally do. Certainly executives in corporates definitely won't do. So that can go a long way. And people I use a software tool where people can actually reply. And so I've had people reply and just go, oh my God, like, is this really a real person talking to me?
You never see that personal touch.
No, you don't see it.
No.
You don't see it. But I think that's one way that you can kind of look after those very loyal customers. We also had a thing where we invited people to an in-person meetup in Sydney recently, where we said, look, hey, you're one of our best online customers. Why don't you come to the same meetup that we're inviting our trade customers to? And so we had this really cool event in the heart of Sydney, which we paid for, and kind of had a guest speaker and really cool stuff, and a great meal, of course. And we had this combination of influencers, D2C consumers, retail stores. It was pretty cool. And people quite liked it. I mean, they got to meet. It was all about the brand, and okay, wow, okay, what do you take? Oh, wow, I take that, blah blah blah. So yeah, that was pretty cool. So just
Yeah.
I think bringing the brand experience to life. One of our values is around co-creating wellness and community, and sharing learning and knowledge, I guess, in the context of that, not just flogging a product. So
No,
that's some of the things we've
amazing.
tried.
No, that's amazing. Yeah, because where else would a retail customer get an opportunity
100%.
like that? So that's something
Yeah,
they're gonna
100%.
remember forever, and they've been rewarded for being a good loyal customer. So yeah,
So that, I mean, and just to answer your question more succinctly, that's a more cost effective,
yep,
direct way of speaking to these and rewarding these customers, I guess, rather than just spending more and more money on ads.
100%, 100%.
Because I think they
Cool.
say it's now something between 7 and 21 exposures of a brand before someone makes the decision to purchase.
Wow.
It's incredible.
Yes. Yep.
It's
Yep.
incredible. Like that, the top of funnel stuff is just so
So important.
hard now.
That's so hard
Yeah.
as well. Yep. 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 And also once you've got them, you've spent that money, you've spent that effort into
How do
acquiring
you
them.
keep them? Yeah.
I don't know, you want to keep them, right?
Yep.
You want to monetize them, but you also want to give them the best experience possible.
Totally.
Um, and that's going to be the key to kind of enduring lifetime value for both
Totally.
parties.
Totally.
Um,
And I think, I double back on content. I think, creating valuable content like you're doing, of course, like we try to do, that is not just flogging something. So not just
yeah,
buy my stuff, buy my stuff. It's like, I'm interested in you as a human being. Here's
absolutely.
some information that I hope you find valuable,
Yeah,
etc. So,
100%. And that's exactly what we try to do with this podcast as well.
yep.
It's just interesting people talking about interesting things.
Yep.
And hopefully that creates helps some retailer, some customer to think about the world in a different way. That's
Yes.
value achieved for you.
Yeah,
Um,
it's hard though. I mean, because you do. I mean, I'm sure you're the same. You feel like sometimes you're in an echo chamber, right? So you just hear the sound
sure.
of your own voice,
No.
which in my case I don't particularly like. But sometimes I'll go to conferences or I'll go to a trade show, and or on Instagram, someone will message me and go, "Oh my god, I didn't realize you guys had a podcast. I've just
Yep.
listened to 3 episodes back to back. I found them super valuable. I'm telling all my friends, and you'll see them post about it on Instagram or
Yep.
LinkedIn or whatever. Oh, that's another one. Try for less high traffic, non-obvious channels. So Pinterest,
Okay.
LinkedIn is I find it awesome.
Yep.
So just like because people are swamped, right? I mean,
Yep.
whether it's your email inbox or your Instagram feed or your Facebook feed or whatever,
Yep.
people are already overwhelmed. And particularly our audience is typically a little older, so they're generally in their 30s all the way through to their 60s.
Okay.
So they're definitely on Facebook and they're definitely on Instagram, but they're generally in a different mind. They're not always in a purchase mindset when they're in those channels.
Yep.
They might be in sort of an awareness and an interest kind of phase when they're going through Instagram or scrolling through Facebook or whatever.
Yep.
But I find particularly things like long form content, sort of more technical stuff, works particularly well on LinkedIn and seems to resonate very well with the audience on LinkedIn.
100%. No, that's something we're trying as well with LinkedIn, trying to
Mm.
create that outreach, especially because we're B2B. See if we
Yep.
can get to more customers now. And LinkedIn
LinkedIn for
seems to
B2B
be
is amazing. And particularly if you
amazing.
kind of get something that gets amplified by sharing, the algorithm
Yep.
really loves shares, organic
Yes.
shares. It doesn't
Organic.
really favor boosted stuff. It really
Yep.
favors organic shares. So
Yeah. Absolutely. And just going back to the podcast, one of the reasons why I wanted to do podcasts was uh, it roots back into the consulting experience. So,
mhm.
as you would know, Gabriel, you were part of Accenture strategy team. You do so many interviews, right, as part of cracking a case. And I was just always blown away, like even from the lowest level of employee to the CEO and middle management in between. When you take them away and put them for 45 minutes and ask them really insightful, probing questions, the wisdom that came out
Mm,
always blew me away. And I was like, this people just need more of that, that setting and asking the right
totally.
questions, and the right answers will pour out.
Yeah, totally. And it is, as you say, just taking people a little bit out of their day-to-day
Yep.
functions,
Yes.
and not interrogating, but just
No.
like sitting and
And
letting
talking.
them tell
Yep.
you their story. Yeah,
Yep.
100%.
Yep. All right. I'm conscious
Yeah.
of time, so I want to touch on ESG and
Yes,
sustainability as well.
please.
So you're part of 1% for the planet.
Hmm.
what kind of inspired that? How did you find out about it? How have your own customers like that connection with 1% for the planet?
Yeah, so we're trying to take it further. So this financial year, we'll be working on becoming a B Corp. We
Okay.
are also moving a number of our products to being climate neutral, so certified climate neutral as well,
Right.
climate and carbon neutral. So zero or positive impact on the planet versus negative. And that's hard as a small business to kind of find the admin time to do that,
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
is a lot of documentation, as you would know.
Yes.
But I think certainly 1% for the planet. I'm an enormous fan of
Yes.
Yvon Chouinard, Patagonia, and so on, who are the people behind it, or of course originally. And so aspirationally, I was like, gosh, we just need to be part of that straight away. For us, the idea of contributing 1% of our revenue to, in our case, Greenfleet, so it's a reforestation charity in Australia that we currently support, just kind of feels good. I don't know if it drives sales or not, but it kind of makes sense for us as a business.
Sure.
We also put recently an initiative where people can choose another charity to donate their contribution to from their purchase. So you go through the process on our website, you buy your product, blah blah blah, and then we have a number of charities. So one, I think, there's a number of environmental charities. And then there's also some education charities for Indigenous children. There's, I think, a homeless charity as well. So just trying to broaden the net, because I know not everyone's about reforestation.
Yep.
So I think I think whatever people do from a charitable perspective is a reflection of their own values as a human
Absolutely.
being. And so we want to be able to give people the opportunity to express their own values, not just our values, if you like.
Absolutely. And have you had customer feedback from that to say,
It's funny.
that?
I don't think we have. So I think
Okay.
people, I think thematically, it casts this halo effect on the brand, perhaps,
Yes.
and people kind of know that Ora is pro-environment.
Yep.
But I don't recall any example of anyone who's gone, well, that's awesome, you guys are 1% for the planet. That changed my decision to buy brand A versus brand B. I don't think we've had that.
Okay.
Which is interesting, hey?
Yeah.
I thought we would.
Yeah.
But yeah. I think it's another trust mark, to be honest. I think it's like an organic certification or a TGA listing number. I think it's just another trust mark.
Absolutely. I think it's also that touch point thing, right? Like you need to test them 6 to 14 times, like you mentioned.
Right.
And this is one another one. Okay, these guys also are good with the environment, so that's why I'm gonna make that big decision of buying from them in the first place.
Yeah. I think it's just one. It's just, as you said, it's just one more positive reinforcement point. I don't think it's a make or break. I really don't think it's a make or break. And also, one of the things that's been very obvious, I guess, as part of the process with this business has been, people want you to be environmentally sustainable, but they won't pay a premium for it.
No, they don't.
And the product performance needs to be as good or better than the conventional alternative. So it's not. It used to be like, oh, I'm environmentally friendly, or I'm healthy, and people go, okay, well, I accept it's going to taste horrible and maybe not be very good quality. I think that's gone. That's no longer acceptable. So.
No, absolutely, 100%. I want to tie back a couple of things we talked about before into ESG as well. So you mentioned you were living in Shanghai, and you had pollution issues, but at the same time you grew up in New Zealand, where you grew up in a farm, and had very good proximity to nature. How much of those experiences also shaped how you view ESG?
Yeah, what a great question. It certainly shaped the formulation of some of the products.
Yep.
So we've built a couple of formulations that include, say, for example, hydroorganically grown Australian broccoli sprouts, which are incredible for detoxification, cellular detoxification from things like pollution. So, it's actually influenced core product formulation ideas. I mean, New Zealand is an interesting example of a country that is so privileged from a access to nature, quality of nature, quality of produce, quality of soil, but actually, regrettably, is a little bit backwards when it comes to ESG.
Oh, okay.
So, because I think they have it so good.
So good, yeah. No value.
I think, I think so. Conversely, perhaps, I think Australia is actually pretty progressive in that regard. China, when we were living there, you struggled to find a recycling bin
Wow. Okay.
So you had to cross the city to recycle your bottles and your cardboard. Um, Thankfully, I think now, so when China gets behind something,
Yeah.
solar,
Yeah.
electric vehicles, AI, whatever it is,
Get it done.
they get behind it. They get it
Yeah.
done. So now I think in 2024, there's a much more sort of very specific focus on environmental sustainability because
Yeah.
there's been 30 years of this exponential growth where they've come effectively from an agrarian society to a post-industrial society.
Yeah.
And of course, all the impact on the environment that they've had to go through as a consequence of that. And I think they've gone, time for some corrective action. And I think, as a society, they're able to affect that change very rapidly, way more rapidly than we can do in say, Australia or New Zealand. So
Yeah. Yeah.
my personal prediction is that China's going to continue to become a leader in environmental sustainability just because they can.
Just because they can. And I completely subscribe to that. I was in
Yep.
Guangzhou earlier this year, and I picked up a Chinese newspaper. And what blew me away was out of the 7 or 8 headlines on the first page of the newspaper, 4, so about half of them were about environment. And this
Right.
was, just a random day. I just picked up the newspaper, and
Yeah.
half of your headlines are about
Yep.
environment and doing better for climate change. That means society cares. That means the government
Yeah.
cares.
Totally.
And I don't
Totally.
have as incredible insight as you, who somebody who lived there and probably understands the culture a lot more. But just that random piece of data, it just blew me away. And I think you're absolutely right. If they kind of get behind it, we will see the outcome pretty fast.
Yeah. I mean, China. There's lots of pros, there's lots of cons, but that sort of strength of will,
Yeah.
cohesive will behind initiatives is incredible.
Incredible.
Absolutely incredible to and you don't get anything like it here.
Yeah.
Whether it's just as one example, just the work ethic, the disparity in work ethic.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how productive they are, but
Yeah.
the sheer brute force hours thrown at a job in China are just blow your mind. Just blow your
But
mind.
it's also the GDP itself,
Yeah.
the big population, how much existing emissions come from there. So if that gets
Right.
overturned, we've got a really good chance as a
Yeah, I mean,
as a
so
planet.
it's interesting because yes, they have long been, as you know better than me,
Yeah.
they've long been a sort of a primary polluter, I guess, globally. But that already in the last sort of 2-3 years has changed dramatically.
Yes.
Their emissions have changed enormously, as I understand it.
Yes, 100%. And it's only going in one direction, which is less.
Mm.
So
Which is
very
awesome.
exciting. Yeah, absolutely. What an uplifting note to finish the podcast on. So no, Gabriel, thank you so much for your
My
time.
pleasure.
Really appreciate your insights in e-commerce, in entrepreneurship, in ESG, and an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for the opportunity. Really, really nice to spend time with you, Sean.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you so much, Gabriel.
Thank you, mate. Cheers.